Hello and welcome to the Tribe of Superbwomen webinar series. I'm Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee of the Superbwoman and the Tribe of Superbwomen. Here with my guest, Donna Miller.
Hello, everyone.
Donna is with C3 Workplace, and Donna, I am very proud to say, is a member of the Executive Council of the Tribe. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Tribe, let me just start by telling you my belief that women have the power to change this world in an instant when we realize it. And so many of us are just going after this ideal of a superwoman, which I'm here to tell you, and Donna, probably you can say the same. It's an unsustainable model. It doesn't work.
Correct.
And so it's really all about learning to be yourself, to tap into your innate power. And women have amazing power. And I have seen time and time again, when women have learned to tap into their innate power, the amazing things that they can do. Donna is a great example of this, and I'm thrilled to have her as part of our executive council. So as an executive council member, each executive council member has a different area of expertise, and Donna's is small business. Now, I've known Donna a couple of years.
More than a couple.
Yeah, but not as long as you've had your business. Yeah. And Donna has had C3 Workplace here in Montclair, New Jersey, and also in Sparta, New Jersey, for over 20 years. And it's a place that provides resources and support for small business owners and entrepreneurs. There's co-working facilities, there's full-time office space, and there's staff that does any kind of administrative support, especially like bookkeeping, answering your phones, things to kind of let entrepreneurs do what's best.
Yes, Janet, you coined a phrase. We call it the administrivia of having a business.
Right. Yep,
that was mine. That was yours. I still quote you on it.
Thank you, thank you. So today, we're going to have Donna talk to us about small business because she is an expert in it, having had her own small business for many years and helping thousands of small business owners over the years. So Donna's going to be here to talk to us about the shiny object syndrome.
Oh, yes, my phrase that you have administrivia. I'd like to think I coined shiny object, but probably not. So, Janet, what I thought I'd do with your audience today and for the members of the tribe is to start out by sharing my story, because I think that's where our authenticity comes from, and that's what I have to lend to the tribe. And, I'm thrilled to be part of Janet's tribe. I thoroughly believe that no one can do this on their own. And, we all talk about, needing a village to raise a child. Well, I think you need a tribe to do pretty much most of anything in life. And I think the right tribe can make all the difference.
Yep.
So, as Janet mentioned, I am president and founder of C3 Workplace. I started this company 23 years ago. Prior to starting this not-so-standard shared office facility, I worked for another shared office facility, because to me, that's a great way to learn something, is, to work for someone else and get the experience. And when I took that job, I was his third manager in 6 months. You think I would have saw that red flag. He was empty, but I filled up the facility, and it was like a fish to water. I loved this concept of sharing the whole centerpiece of the office. Doctors and lawyers have done that forever. Why not business owners? So it was a great situation in that I was left completely on my own. He was a completely absentee owner. I filled up the office space, and because my compensation was tied to revenue, I thought, okay, how am I going to make more money? So I thought, well, these people are renting space, they might need their phones answered, they might need some bookkeeping done, they might need someone to manage their calendar. So I began providing support services as a way to generate more revenue from the same clients and to provide them with a better solution. When I went to work for him, early on, we had a handshake that he would sell me the business. Lesson number 2. Turnover before you, not so good. Handshake deal, don't do those anymore. So I offered him substantially more than the business was worth, and he said no. And I was devastated. But life lesson number 3, very often those things that are crushing have turned out to be incredible blessings.
Mm-hmm.
So he would not sell me the business. So I did what he later referred to as despicable, which was I spent 6 months writing a somewhat bulletproof business plan. I raised funds, actually less than what I was going to pay him for the business. And I opened up my very own location, 1.2 miles from where he used to be located. That was a long time ago. And my motivation for opening my own facility was I did love autonomy. I have to say, I'm comfortable in that role. And I think if you're going to open a business, you have to be comfortable being the person that everyone comes to, and that at the end of the day, you're the one who has to figure it out. But, at the time, I have 2 children. They were 10 and 7. I really wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be able to go to the play on a Tuesday afternoon, or, well, I don't really bake, I buy, but buy cupcakes and bring them. But I wanted to be a mom. And so that was, my motivation was to be autonomous, to be a mom, and to make a decent living. And I just didn't see that out there in the marketplace. So I felt I had to create it for myself. I did. My strategy in the beginning was I brought a former employee with me. I gave her equity in the company. Many people told me I was crazy to do that. But frankly, it was the absolute right decision for me. We worked together for about 8 years. I very amicably bought her out. We're still great friends. So when I opened my business, I sat at the front desk. I greeted every person. I pitched every person. I answered the phones. I typed the letters. I did the bookkeeping. I did everything. And I became a chronic micromanager. I started to hire staff as the business grew. I expanded several times within this location. And as I say to business owners, when you get into that, my way is the only right way, then you get on this hamster wheel that becomes really difficult to get off of, and it is really difficult to create work-life balance. So, I don't know, maybe 10 years in, there was a paradigm shift that kind of started for me. We had always had a great holiday party. We had our 10th anniversary. It was a big holiday party. And then we came to year 11, and the staff is talking about, how we can do bigger and better. And I thought, I've never been a keeping up with the Joneses kind of person, and I thought, this is crazy. What are we doing? So we lent our name to a charity to raise money, which was the Cornerstone House in Montclair, which is a homeless shelter. I mean, who would have thought Montclair, New Jersey needs a homeless shelter? And it began the shift. It was, okay, I unintentionally opened a values-driven company. The original name of the company was Above and Beyond, because it is our mandate to exceed client expectations, to always go above and beyond what the client is offering. But I felt like there was more. I felt like I had an opportunity to do something good. So 5 years ago, and Janet, you were part of my rebranding team. That was so much
right here in this room.
fun. In this very room. We drove one particular gal completely insane.
Yeah, we did.
But we really had to do a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? We really had to look at the business and say, okay, what is it? What is it that we do that's so unique and so special? And so we rebranded and became very intentional about being a values-driven company. So the C3 in C3 Workplace actually stands for Connect, Collaborate, Community. So I believe companies should be a force for good. I believe in the power of collaboration. Certainly that goes to what you're doing with the tribe, right? I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So it became a major shift for us. So Connect, Collaborate, Community. We also incorporated this concept of co-working, where all these business owners have a place to come in. It's called Business Lounge. It's called Touchdown Space. Everything is incremental now. So we rebranded our company to represent our values more clearly, and I like to call it the secret sauce of what we do. I mean, we're connectors. Janet is as well. We just kind of breathe it. So to represent our values, to represent what was going on in the market, we did a location renovation, and I love marketing. So the branding became the driving force of the company. And since we rebranded. We opened a second location in the spirit of collaboration and strategic partnerships. We are also now in partnership with another small chain of independent facilities. So we now actually operate out of 4 locations, and we're talking to a 5th. So we're growing the brand, we're scaling the brand, we're sticking to what we're really good at, which is providing that community feel and that back office support that allows our client base to focus on driving revenue. And in the last couple of years, one of the things we've been very strategic about is building those partnerships. So whether it's with Liberty Office Suites, who have locations in Parsippany and Montville, or whether it's with the Morris County Chamber or the North Essex Chamber, so we've built these strategic partnerships that have become our tribe. Mm-hmm. So on May 2nd, we have this event for Small Business Week. We've got great sponsorship. We'll have 200 people in attendance, and we'll be talking to all these people about how to take their business to the next level. And, this morning I posted on Facebook, I personally get an email from Simon Sinek every morning. He writes to me, right. Just me, no one else. But he talked about, the quote was, "So much of starting a business or affecting change boils down to the confidence and courage to simply try," which is what we all do in our business. And I have to add to that, the other piece of that is you have to try, but you also have to ask. Mm-hmm. So what is it about building your business or building your tribe? And, I've watched you grow this organization. And so, it's so funny because what you're doing and what I'm doing is really, there are so many parallels. And that's, of course,
no surprise there.
No surprise.
No surprise there. So you're talking about how you grew your business, and then in the same vein, how you help other companies grow. So from both personal experience and working with other companies, how do you decide what your priorities are? How do you find that focus? And I know from personal experience, it's so easy to go, that's a great idea, I'll go over there, or maybe that one. Yes, definitely a squirrel.
Yeah. Right. So that's So that's where that whole shiny object syndrome comes in. We work with our clients to help them to avoid that. And I believe that one of the main ways that you avoid the shiny object is by getting very, very clear on your mission, values, vision statement. So what do? What do you stand for, and where are you going? That is a really oversimplified version of what a mission, values, vision statement is. But Simon Sinek was very key for me in helping me to figure out who we are, because as Simon Sinek says, people do business with why you do business more so than what you do. That's a very magnetic force. Yes. So when you get really clear on what you do, what you stand for, where you're going, and then you use that mission, values, vision statement for everything you do in your business, whether it's who do I collaborate with, who do I hire, what clients I'm going to bring on. And for me, so much, as I said, so much of the business is values driven. And what I found for me is that by getting clear on my values and putting those out into the world, that's exactly what's come back to me. So my tribe has been built with like-valued people that are trying to grow businesses. And so how we help our clients to decide priorities is by providing some of the services and educational programs that we provide, because what I love about entrepreneurs is that they are highly creative. Mm-hmm. And you have to be, because you're constantly having to react to market changes or client situations, but it can become difficult to not get pulled in a million different directions. So we have a program that we teach called Earn More, and that's where we really help people to figure out what are the behaviors that they need to focus on to drive more revenue. So sometimes deciding priorities, I believe it starts with that mission, values, vision statement.
And do you write that down?
Great point. Thank you, Janet. Absolutely. If it is not written down, it's just an idea. You have to get it out of your head and onto paper. And then I think that mission, values, vision statement becomes the foundation for all your messaging. So you've got a mission, values, vision statement. You've got a product or service offering. Then, based on those two things, the next thing you have to do to create priorities, and priorities and focus really are the same thing, is decide who your target market is. And sometimes, have you ever encountered someone who you're maybe at a networking event and they introduce themselves and you say to them, oh, and who do you provide your services to? And they say,
anybody.
Oh,
I can work with anybody.
Well, of course you can, but you can't market to everyone. So I always talk about the riches are in the niches. How can you find that lane where you can become the big fish in the small pond, where you can present yourself as a thought leader, where you can bring value to the table. We can provide our services to everyone. We focus on B2B professional service firms, creative of some type, and that includes most entrepreneurs. So I think having a target market is really important. And I think if you get very clear on the DNA of your target market, what are the demographics? Those are kind of the basic things of how old are they, what education, what industries, maybe how long they've been in business. If you could then add some psychographics into that, what are their lifestyles? What are their values? What are the things that are important to them? And third tier of how to figure out the DNA is, are there events that drive a need for what it is you do? If you can kind of put that stuff, if you can track that, you can really develop some very niche target markets. And there's two things about niche markets. One, they do help you to maintain focus. They help you to amplify your voice in a smaller arena and have a greater impact. But I really believe it's the way to charge more for what you're doing, because you are an expert. Yeah, exactly. So, so I think that's some of the ways that you can decide some of your priorities, and then all of that gets tied into your messaging. And now that you're clear on your value and your niche, now you've got compelling messaging that can help you to differentiate from your competitors.
Excellent. So let me just stay on that vein right now, because my experience has been, and working with my own coaching clients who are trying to find a niche, they're so afraid, and I know from personal experience, so afraid, if I do this, but then maybe I'm going to miss some business. And my experience, and tell me if this is true for you, is that the more you focus on something, you actually draw in other people.
You really do. There really is, whether it's a law of energy, whether it's a magnetism, I actually just think it's a solid strategy. Everyone I know who has grown their business has gotten narrower and narrower in their focus to build their platform. Now, once you've built a platform and it's self-sustaining, now you might be able to look at ancillary businesses because you have the means and the reach to be able to accomplish that. But I know that it is scary to give something up. But I have to say, it's any time in my life when I have not trusted my instincts, I've lived to regret it. So if you're facing a piece of business that just is giving you that feeling in the pit of your stomach, and you've got a few bills that are due, but this piece of business is there, and you really don't, it doesn't feel aligned to what you do, I have to tell you that in my experience, saying no is possibly one of the most liberating things you can do. And it's eliminating negative, which makes room for positive.
So it's both, though, saying no to potential business, but letting go of negative existing clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a client last year. It was a really nice piece of business, worked with him for the whole year, but I just kept getting that feeling in my stomach, and it just wasn't aligned with my values. And when I go back and I look at my mission, values, vision, I just said to this person, thank you, but I'm not going to continue next year. And it was not a small amount of money. And when I spoke to my husband about it, he said, Donna, this is your business. Do what you want. And I have to say, as soon as I had the conversation, I felt so much lighter. And sure enough, within a very short period of time, other opportunities arose that more than made up for that.
Yeah. So this is something I learned from Donna when we worked together, because I was here when one of those situations came up, and I was like, is she crazy? Letting go of this business? And I'm like, well, we could make it work, And she taught me that when you let go of something that's not aligned, that's not working for you, there's a vacuum that gets then filled. And that's not just in business, in life as well. If you've ever cleaned out a closet or, purged things, other amazing things start to come into your life when you get rid of that negative energy that's holding you back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, part of what we also were talking about is, how do you stay focused on that? So saying no is certainly one of the ways you stay focused. And I think that, I hear all the time from business owners how hard it is to avoid the shiny object, to stay focused. There are so many opportunities to do so many things. And once I help clients to get clear on that mission, values, vision, and that target market and what that messaging is going to be. And this is a process. This is not something that happens, in a weekend. It's really about what is the behavior that's going to drive the greatest results. And I always encourage my clients to focus on no more than 4 initiatives, 4 areas, 4 ways that they're going to grow their company, because it's just, people try to do so much, and the law of diminishing return tells us that the more you do across platforms, the less of a return you get on it. In the 4 disciplines of execution, he talks about creating wildly important goals. And Chris McChesney says you really can only have 2. You can have lots of things underneath that, but the reality is the more you try to accomplish, the less you actually do. So for me, it's about creating, I like to call it a cookbook of behaviors. What is it that I'm going to do? I quantify it. So if I say that networking is going to be one of my behaviors, not only do I quantify how many networking events I'm going to go to, but I set a goal for those behaviors, because some people who are extroverted and go to networking events just kind of want to have fun and party. I'm actually introverted. I know that you
were pointing at me when you said extroverted. I'm not quite sure why you were doing that, Donna.
Because you are such a bubbly personality. I happen to have a hard time networking. So setting goals means I'm going to go to that event and I'm going to leave with 3 people I'm going to meet to have coffee with or something. So, and the other big piece of that for me, and I know you and I have talked about this many times, is for me, staying focused means everything I do goes on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's really probably not going to get done. So, of course, people know that they have to put their appointments on their calendar. So let's talk about networking. You know that when you go to a networking event, you have to put the networking event on your calendar. Of course you do. You may even be putting the travel time on your calendar. But I would encourage you to put preparation time for the networking event. Maybe you want to look at the speakers, look at their LinkedIn profiles. Maybe you want to reach out to them to make the most of this event. But most importantly, if you're going to a networking event, I think you have to budget time to do follow-up. You're going to meet some people. You're going to make some phone calls. So that 2-hour networking event probably just became a 5-hour event. And I think that when people don't do that, they underestimate how long things take, and so they overcommit. Make sense?
I think that's really true. And I think your point is very well taken about the networking, that the follow-up is the most important thing. Going there and meeting the people is one thing, but if you don't follow up with them, you had a nice conversation and that's it.
Right.
And it hasn't moved your business forward.
Exactly.
So it's all getting back to, staying focused on the business objectives, your plan of action, as you were talking about, and making sure that everything you do is aligned with all of that.
Right. The other thing for me about using the calendar is I tend to be a visual person, and I need to see everything on the calendar so that I don't overcommit myself. And I even put, I call it white space, because I believe one of the ways you stay focused is not by working harder, but by working smarter. And that means taking breaks. I have known this for a long time about myself. I can have very intense cycles in my business or personal life, but I know for me, if I don't schedule that downtime, when I schedule downtime, whether it's reading a book, whether it's taking a vacation, that's when my greatest ideas and my greatest inspirations come, whether it's for business or personal. So I also make sure that I schedule downtime.
Yeah, it's so important. And I know that has been one thing that I have seen you really embrace over the years, and have seen you blossom as a result of that. So let's continue on that vein. So talking about, how do you have a life and have a business?
Right, right. And that's a great segue, which I didn't intend. That was actually pretty good, Jen. We did good on that. So, you talk a lot about work-life balance. I tend to call it work-life integration, because balance for me feels like a target that I'll never quite get. So for me, my goal at this point, and how I am at the moment, is I take regular vacations. I don't come into the office in August. If there's something that I need to do personally, with the way we can work so mobily now, work-life integration has become both easier and harder.
Yeah.
Because we can do it from anywhere, but these smartphones, we're always accessible. So how to have a business and have a life, I think, comes back to being realistic about what you can do. I think it also comes back to charging what you're worth, so that you make sure you have a profitable business margin, so that you can take time off. And that often begins with, even if you are doing some sort of professional service and you're doing the delivery yourself, you have to charge from the beginning enough so that you can hire someone to do the work. And that, when you start to create a business or an organization, I mean, it's great to have a solo practice, and that works. If you're going to have a solo practice, I think you have to realize that you're going to need these times off. You're only going to have a certain amount of billable work. Again, it comes back to charging enough so that you don't feel the pressure to work 30 billable hours a week. That's actually very hard to do and run a business.
Yeah.
So I think there are many things that you need to do to have build a business and have a life. Certainly, you're going to have to. I don't believe you can do it all yourself. We talk about the tribe. We talk about collaboration. I think the other piece of it, as a small business owner, as a solopreneur, as a growing company, you have to look at what you can delegate. You have to look at how do you get resources. People who open their business and they do coaching, and they're also doing their website, and they're doing their bookkeeping. And, I don't think that's the highest use of their time.
Right.
I don't think that takes them closer to their goals. Now, do you have to bootstrap it from the beginning? Very possibly. But I think that there should be something in the business plan to budget to get help for the business.
Yeah.
So that you can have a business and have a life. And ultimately, for me, it's been about growing a business that runs without me, because I want to work forever. I love what I do. I love helping business owners. I want to do it from anywhere, and I want to do it because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. Yeah. So this is my whole exit strategy. Is I'm just working my way out of a job, training, raising up leaders, and helping them to run the business, create little units for them. Their little, units within the company. And I think that, for all the people that I work with that are growing businesses, it's really exciting in the beginning, and you really, working 60 hours a week doesn't seem like such a terrible thing, but trust me.
Do that after 10 years, and yeah.
Not so
Well,
much.
you know what? It's funny. We've kind of gone full circle in what we've been talking about here. And when you were talking about when you were first starting off, and you were very much a micromanager.
I was.
Being a micromanager and having a life outside the business don't work.
No.
And so it's really, I think, you've made many, but to this point, a good point about, in order to be able to take the time off, you have to be able to bill at the right price to be able to hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a two-step thing. It's both from the financial perspective, but it's also the emotional perspective of being able to let go and allow somebody else to do it.
Right. And I think that, that's certainly a process. I think it's part of the process is not expecting perfection, and perfection is so insanely overrated, whether you're holding the mirror up to yourself or looking for other people to help you. But, it was a process for me of, I call myself now a recovered micromanager, because I am so not. I can't believe, honestly.
No, you have changed.
I have changed a lot. But that was because it was killing me to be such a micromanager. Right. I wasn't accomplishing what I was trying to accomplish. I was making bad situations worse. I was taking mistakes and turning them into failures. So now it's a very different environment. And I got really good at, when someone would come to me and ask me a question, I'm kind of famous for saying, well, what do you think we should do? And, it became this kind of culture shift of, whenever there was a situation, all right, we'll bring the situation and bring a couple of possible solutions. And then I've done a ton of reading. I'm completely self-taught entrepreneur. And I was I still am a little bit fascinated with Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week, which I personally think the 4-hour work week is probably BS. But a 4-hour work day is not. Right. And 4 days a week is not. And he referred to it as working on your MBA. So I have done a lot of work on my MBA, which is management by absence. Mm-hmm. And when you are the leader of a company, chances are you kind of, I hate to admit it, but there are times when I feel like I suck the air out of a room. I don't mean to do it. It's just what I do. So I was better off leaving them, going, working at home, working at a different office, letting them take the time, giving them, here's the outcome I want. Here's the checkpoints. And this also kind of comes back to the delegation model. When you first start working with someone new, you just ask them to research and report. Then maybe you want them to research, report, and recommend. Then, like when I would go on vacation, I'd give them a budget. If you could solve it for less than $500, don't call me. So it's a way of empowering people, giving them parameters, and helping them to feel comfortable taking risks, which was not something I did early on. So it's been a circle. Exactly.
Well, Donna, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here with us, and some really valuable hints and tips and advice for small business owners. And tell everybody what your website is.
So you can find me at www.c3workplace.com.
And check it out. And if you are in the Montclair, New Jersey area, it's a lovely facility here that we're sitting in right now, a conference room, workspace, and wonderful support services for small business owners. So thank you, Donna.
Absolutely, Janet. I'm always happy to collaborate with you and contribute to the tribe. And it's a great journey. Just don't do it alone.
Excellent. Excellent. And join us for next month, when we'll have yet another executive council member sharing her experience and wisdom on her particular topic. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.